So the recent sentencing of former Member of Parliament Jolyan Silvera has caught the attention of many. With us this morning, attorney at law, Mr. Bert Samuels, to break down the intricacies of the sentencing and the factors that influence the judge's decision. Good morning, sir. Welcome to Smile. How are you?
Good morning to you and your viewers.
Great to have you with us. Before you tell me about sentencing guidelines and stuff, I want to read something that the Chief Justice said. He said, Mr. Silvera committed a deliberate and voluntary act. Isn't that murder?
By itself, but if you put provocation in, it can reduce it, eh?
Which it did.
Which it did, but when you say it was deliberate, that's the part I don't understand. I understand what you just said, but if you are coming out and say the man deliberately do it, there's no murder that?
Yes, by itself, but if you add provocation, because he squeezed the trigger at least 3 times, so that was deliberate. But if it is by law accompanied by provocation, then that is reduces murder not to an acquittal but to manslaughter.
Does that mean he didn't mean to kill her after he fired 3 times?
Yes, he would have meant to kill her with 3 rounds from a firearm. So you can mean to kill someone if you are provoked and the jury accepts that you are provoked. You don't just tell the court, oh, I lost my temper and, I did it. And, those were hurtful words told to me. No, it is for the jury to accept that that would make them lose their self-control, or the reasonable man lose his self-control. That's what the law would say. So the DPP decided, because that's a live issue, there was no crown witness to say what happened when they were together. They said it's likely, it's possible that a jury would accept provocation to reduce murder to manslaughter. And murder is life imprisonment and manslaughter is life imprisonment. Don't forget that.
Yeah. So Samuels, I think for a lot of us, this was a masterclass. Chief Justice laid it out like step by step by step by step. Yeah. All the nuances that you're now talking to us about. In the grand scheme of things, although many Jamaicans don't feel that way, do you think in the main that justice was in fact served?
I think it was, and I think that you should head that list of thinking justice was served, because they opened the court to journalists for the first time in 52 years. I've been an attorney for 46 years. It's the first time I've seen the public being able to hear the reasoning of the judge leading up to a sentence being given. And the public was totally disappointed and annoyed because they were kept out of the process before now. Several times the press, complained about this particular case, that you couldn't get into the courtroom. And the Chief Justice did the right thing. He almost disobeyed the law, for want of a better word, because the Gun Court Act says that it should be done in private, and opened it up to the public. So if you ask if justice was served, the open door, the open court justice, what lawyers love to say, that there is no justice unless the public is allowed to witness what is happening and critique it. Mm-hmm. So from that point of view, it was justice served.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard or read where the DPP said they could not prove that he wasn't telling the truth about provocation.
Yeah.
So if he did say she rushed me with a knife and I had to respond, how you that tell say I'm not telling the truth there?
Yeah, that's the problem. You see, the DPP has to follow certain rules. A prosecutor cannot challenge something that they don't have evidence to contradict. It's a rule of evidence, and it's a rule of prosecutorial behavior. If you cannot contradict it with an eyewitness, you cannot suggest to him that he's lying. You cannot do that. It would be prosecutorial misconduct. So they were caught in a bind. Once their persons are together alone, there's no video evidence, there's nothing to contradict an accused, then the explanation of the accused is said in law to be something that must be given the weight that the jury think it should be given. So you can't suggest to him that he's lying. They couldn't do that.
Interesting.
So my question really is, what happens now, Sir Samuel? So this case has, I guess, closed. The verdict has been handed down. But there are so many people asking, okay, what have the other folks? There must have been other folks involved in this whole situation. Yes. There's still so many. Question. Right. Do those people get held to account, or what happens now?
That is for the DPP herself, because, you know, if you try to adjust a crime scene, if you try to adjust the weapon, and you get the help of others, that in itself is a crime. So I accept and I agree with the public that based on all of the facts being said, that the retrofitting of the bedroom, retiling, you know, cleaning up, those were attempts, now that the case is over, I can say this, to conceal the crime. And that is a serious crime. You know, it is aiding and abetting the commission of an offense.
So you suspect there is more anon?
Yeah, it could be more or not. But I want to correct you when you said that the verdict is in. There was no need for a verdict because he pleaded guilty. What is in is the sentence.
Right. Okay.
And that is, and I want to talk about that, because if he had challenged the case and went and pleaded not guilty to everything, that would be, at least in my estimation, a 5 to 6 week trial. So what the Chief Justice said is, listen, when a person pleads guilty, he has to be rewarded because he has not caused the system to have to spend 6 weeks on his case, and it allows space for other cases. So in the wider view of the administration of justice, persons are encouraged to plead guilty and are rewarded with a reduction because they have not wasted the court's time.
Yeah.
Right.
Some of us are saying that, you know, too little, should I get much more? Some of us have said, and when I say some of us, I mean the average Joe and Jane here I'm talking about. Some of us are saying, yeah, justice was served. From what you know now, prosecutor, defense, everybody happy with what's going on? What happened? Or do you suspect that there still might be an appeal and somebody might say, well, him get too little, somebody might say him get too much?
Well, people call me a defense lawyer, but if I take my lawyer hat off, the sentence that was given is not one that I necessarily agree with, but I have to respect the process. I have to respect that he got credit for the 2 years plus he was in custody, so it was reduced by that. And there is a Jamaican law that says if you plead guilty, there should be at least a 35% reduction. So if you have laws, and if the Chief Justice followed the law, we can't blame him. It's the Parliament that says, give persons reduction who plead guilty. And remember, we are the same ones that complain how long cases take to try. And there's this big waiting list for people on trial. And, you know, the system is clogged because too many persons are awaiting trial. And people are not being tried in a reasonable time. And if you are not tried in a reasonable time, the Constitution says that you can be acquitted. So what the judges are looking at and the system is looking at, we don't want to be accused of delaying persons wanting to have their trial. Persons have been waiting for 10 years for their trials. Yeah. So in a global way, it's good.
Keep your lawyer hat off.
Yeah, I will.
You say
don't
you're
ask
not...
me to put my parent hat on.
No, I won't. But it's interesting for me to hear you say that if you take your lawyer hat off, you may not necessarily have agreed with the sentence. You would have given him more time.
I can't tell you.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to...
Yeah, but you know, Mr. Samuels, in court, the judge would say, you brought it up. So you kind of have a right to answer us now, because you bring it up and say you never agree with it.
But I have the right to silence.
My final question, what is the implication of this case for acts of intimate partner violence now, domestic disputes, these kind of crimes? This is a seminal one, a landmark one, Sir Bert. So what do we take from this?
Well, a sentence is supposed to act as a deterrent. So, you know, those of us who have bad temper and, you know, think that, you know, we can just do what we want when people provoke us, that's a deterrent. You're going to get 20 years plus, even if you are provoked. And that is why those who complain that they should have accepted the manslaughter plea, I don't necessarily agree with that, because he was still given a heavy sentence. Not heavy enough for some people. So going forward, a sentence is supposed to act as a deterrent. It's supposed to show that we have police investigators and pathologists and scientists who can bring you to book. So I think that's a very good thing about this case, that, the scientists came and did their work, and, people don't just get away. You try to say persons died from natural causes. You're going to have to face a post-mortem. You're going to have to face the body being searched for any, anything that is a foreign substance, and you're going to have to account. People take, for example, the stomach, the contents of your stomach is something that is checked for poisoning.
Yeah.
So the system is working, and I'm proud. That's the takeaway from this case.
Yeah, you said time served. I was talking to Sim about it this morning, and they say 13 years before he's eligible for parole. Does that mean with time served is 11 years I'm going to be eligible for parole, or still 13?
Well, you remember, the parole system works. So once you've done 2/3, or that's a kind of rough figure, of your sentence, you're now eligible for parole. The parole board can say, listen, we're not going to send you out there as yet, because people are still hurting at this time. So they take everything into consideration. They take the relatives of the victims and they interview them to see the impact of your being released would have on them. So when we say it's eligible, it doesn't mean it's automatic. So that's how it's dealt with.
All right. Always good to see you, sir. Thanks for speaking with us. Blessings.
All the best. Take care.
Attorney at law, Bert Samuels. After the break, one woman's mission to elevate women everywhere. Stay with us, please. Soon come.